I'm not muted. Here we go. Let's try this again. Good evening, everyone. Dr. Battles here. Welcome to our live session because this evening we are talking about how to maximize your leadership using KPIs. And so I want to get into this topic because as a leader in education, even currently now, but also as an instructional leader in the past, in my experience working in schools and understanding that some of the things that are happening within our schools are a reflection of our leadership. And so we have to be willing to look at our leadership development, be willing to look at what are our focal points, be willing to understand if we are meeting the mark, if we are doing the things that we are prized and excited to do in our schools. And so as we get through today, if you have any questions as we are going forward, feel free to put these questions into the chat. Feel free to put these questions into comments. This will be about maybe 30 minutes, maybe longer, depending on how well we're going. But I am also going to have a small Q&A at the end as we talk about this KPI with equity-centered leadership. So a lot of times what we're looking at and what we see happen as leaders in schools, leaders in districts, but really this can be leaders in any sector, is that we come into these roles very ambitious, very excited to come in and make an impact. I don't know very many people that come into a leadership role and don't want to make an impact in their role. Yes, you might make a few more dollars. Yes, you might make a few more coins, but the biggest goal or the biggest ambition that most of us have is that we see that there is a way that we can bring our authentic self, who we are, our experiences, all of those things, we can bring them into the leadership space. And so one of our goals is to think about how do we measure these things out. And so I've been in education since 2008. And I've been a classroom teacher, I've been an instructional leader. Now I'm a consultant and I partner with schools and do strategic planning, professional development for teachers, and professional development for instructional leaders. Now let's define instructional leaders. Instructional leaders are people who make decisions, who impact teacher development, who work together to reach common goals. And a lot of our goals in school primarily is to close these achievement gaps, right? Whether we see a large portion or a demographic of our students who are not performing well in a certain subject area, we create these school improvement plans. We come up with these goals that we want to increase literacy 20%. We want to see more equity in our culture and climate. We want to improve parent and family and community engagement. Everybody has goals. Everybody has something that they are in their job role to do. But the problem is, the issue is, why are you not seeing the results even when you tried your hardest? And what I come across now as a consultant and a coach is that I work with a lot of instructional leaders who are really frustrated. They've tried the things, right? They have offered to help. They have come into classrooms to observe. They have held PLCs where they are giving ideas on strategies, on ways to change things. They even offer to coach teachers because a lot of times in districts, the coaching is optional, right? I was in a school where they were coaches, but they were not even prescribed or told that they needed to coach teachers, right? It was a lot of stuff that had to do with the district level and make sure that students were on this curriculum, if it was an online curriculum, or if it was like Lexia or Edmentum or any of these things. It was like logging the minutes, making sure kids are getting on, making sure teachers know how to use it. It was all of that extra stuff that has its purpose, but you were not in a space where you were truly developing teachers. Let me know in the chat if you all have experienced this same thing where you wanted to help teachers, or you even as a teacher wanted to receive the coaching. And this is one of the things that I find is a huge gap between the instructional leaders and the teachers. I have had conversations with teachers in small groups, and one-on-one. And they are always excited. If I have the privilege and I'm coaching these teachers on professional development, my area is culturally responsive teaching, right? So we're looking at the way the brain develops. We're looking at the way that the brain processes information. We're looking at child and adolescent development. We're looking at all of these things to make our instruction equitable at the ground level, which closes the gap between how many students we're referring to tier 2 and to tier 3, right? And these things are important because we see a lot of our black and brown kids, a lot of our neurodivergent students who are put into those tier 2 and tier 3 RTIs, when if we would fix and work on the tier 1 instruction, we would see change. So as I'm having conversations with these teachers and we're talking about how to really make that tier 1 instruction responsive to how that brain takes in information, how that brain is already coming in with funds of knowledge, right? We're talking about this. Teachers have these aha moments where they're like, if I had only knew this, if I had only tried this, if instructional leaders did not just simply observe me and tell me what was wrong or tell me what I needed to fix or need to do without any real coaching of that, I could have been a better teacher. And so a lot of these people actually want to improve. They want the things to be better. They want to receive the coaching. And they are actually in a deficit because they're not receiving it. And so a new person, if you're an instructional leader and you're coming to this position, you may encounter some resistance, right? Because what happens is you're going to encounter these problems where you may want help. You come in and you're like, I got you. I'm not here to be like, I got you. I'm going to get you in trouble or I'm going to report you to the higher ups and I'm going to tell everybody that you're a horrible teacher. No, I'm here to support you. You may have the best intentions, but there may be resistance that comes up. Why? Because you represent a system that has not been that way the entire time. A system that has not asked, how can we serve? How can we support you? And so what we have, these problems that you may see on the screen. And if you are on TikTok, I have a screen going up here, but I'll just articulate everything out to you. But be sure to double tap the screen so that we can get through the algorithm. Like this post. If you're watching, be sure to share this out in your networks so that we can make sure that more instructional leaders are getting the support that they need. Because it's always a need. When we see certain behaviors, when we see these 3 problems that I'm about to outline, what we see is there is a need, just like with our babies, just like with our students. When we see behavior that is inappropriate or behavior that is not conducive to a good learning environment, that behavior is typically an indication that there is a need that has not been met. It could be a need on a parent level. It could be a need on a community level. It could be a need at a teacher level, whatever, but there is a need that has not been met. So I'm going to find these 3 problems that are probably going to resonate with a lot of you all as to why you're not seeing the results, even when you have tried your hardest. Problem number 1, we have traditional inertia. That is the lack of the necessary transformation that are needed. The lack of the necessary transformations that are needed because we have something called traditional inertia. And I've heard these things and I always wondered as I've become a consultant, I've been doing this since 2020. And I'm like, what is going on? What are these modes of resistance? And so I had to do a little research to find out what was really going on. And one of the modes of resistance that I found is called traditional inertia. And what that means is that people are stuck in what they've always done and doing things the way they've always done them. So here you come with all your radical dreams, with all your ambition, with all your excitement. You went to the conference, you saw some research-based information going forward. You've met with other educators, leaders in other states across the country, even across the world. And you see people that are actually having success in creating an equitable culture where learning is thriving. And you come in and you're excited and you want to share the joy. But what happens is people have done things the way they've always done them for a very long time. And that is one of the biggest barriers to the transformation that's actually necessary to get these things going, right? You know, if this is something that you've experienced, it may not be widespread, it may not be most of the teachers on your team or in your building, but you have a few on your team, unless your whole team is just out there doing the best and doing it well, or you came from an environment, you most likely experience traditional inertia. And what that does is it creates a barrier between getting certain teachers to jump on board, to be motivated, and to buy in and pick up what you're trying to put down. And then that leaves you in a situation where you keep hitting a wall. You keep hitting a wall. And what happens when we keep hitting a wall and it doesn't come down? You become frustrated. You become frustrated. Sometimes we become angry. Right? Sometimes we misplace blame and say, oh, they just don't want to do it. Oh, they just don't want to learn. And we begin to group people and make judgments and assumptions about people and their motives and intentions. And it's still, whatever you do with it, keep you at a wall. There is still a barrier. Problem number 2, you're not able to meet your growth targets, even when you've offered and tried to help. That is a huge, huge problem, because it's no good to have these strong school improvement plans. I've seen them all, right? You got these school improvement plans, you got these percentages, you got these numbers, you want to see growth. Every school in America wants to see growth. I'm in Arkansas. We got 30+% of our children, our students, who are reading on or above grade level. Only 30%. And we're not the only state dealing with the literacy crisis, right? So that alone lets you know that a lot of our schools, especially with COVID and the impact of COVID, and really what COVID revealed that was already happening, with that, we're not able to meet our growth targets. And so you try help, you offer to help, but here you go, frustrated again. Problem number 3, you got resistance, like I talked about before, but you also have a lack of buy-in. And here's the kicker: a lack of intrinsic motivation from your team and the people that you lead. These are problems. And these are problems that sometimes will make you feel like, as an instructional leader, that you're not doing your job, that you're not effective. Am I really making an impact? Should I even be here in space? What am I doing here? Right? And it can go down a rabbit hole if you don't catch yourself and do the soul work to reaffirm what you radically dreamed. But if you don't couple those dreams with strategy, with a distinctive plan, with collaboration with other folks, whether it's an outside person or the community and people that you serve, if you don't do that work, that problem will send you down a rabbit hole that will now move you into the cycle of traditional inertia, where you're doing the same thing the same way. It's the way we've always done, but where are the results? And we can't say, oh, we got one teacher or 2 teachers that are getting it done, because that still means that we have quite a few teachers that are not. And what that means for our young people is that we've got young people who are falling through the cracks. And that's the goal, that's the purpose, that's the dream, that's the point of the work that we do, especially in education, right? But even on a corporate level, if you're thinking about meeting the needs of your clients, if you're thinking about being a customer-centric organization, if you're a nonprofit and you want to make sure that you're serving the people that you have set in your mission statement, in your vision statement, in your goals that you put on your website, if you're not tapped into those people, if you don't have certain things set up that we're going to talk about today, then you're going to continue to miss the mark. But here's where we switch mode. Now we want to think about desire. And so let me reset the room for those who are just joining. If you're here, TikTok, thank you for here, double tap the screen. Thank you for sharing. For those who have already shared this live, please share this live out in your networks. Please tap the screen so that it can get in the algorithm. We are here to talk to leaders, specifically instructional leaders, our K through 12 schools, public, private, charter, wherever you are. And we're talking about how to use KPIs, key performance indicators, to maximize your leadership, your capacity, and your impact. So we've talked about these three problems that we see happening, but let's talk about and switch mode to desire, right? What are our dreams? Because a lot of times we're so busy doing the work, whether managerial work, more administrative work. A lot of times when I'm talking and coaching with instructional leaders, they are always now fires. Every single day, I come in and I may come in at the end of the session and I'm asking, or the end of the day, I have a session with them and I'm asking, how was your day? How's everything going? What's happening? They're exhausted because they have been little firefighters. They've got all this equipment on their back and they've just been running around putting out fires from classroom to classroom, one side of the building to the next, one teacher to the next. They are consistently in this pattern of putting out fires, but it's primarily because we don't have things mapped out the way we should. We don't have alignment. A lot of us have been waiting on the district or whoever hired us, our leaders, to lay this out, but you can't sit around and wait on that anymore. You can't sit around and wait on somebody else to come and save you. They're not coming. They're not coming. Nobody else is coming to save you. Nobody is coming to save our children. You are in a position that you are in to bring forth an impact that will yield sustainable and transformational results. So when you think about that, I always start my clients here with desire. What type of work environment do you radically dream of impacting your role? I want you to think about that. Think about what the title of your role is. What's your job description? Did you that when you filled out that application or you had that interview or you sat down and you were like, okay, I aspire to go here. You went back to school, got your EE or got your master's or whatever you did. And you thought, I'm getting this for a purpose. I mean, of course, I'm going to make more money, but there will be a deeper soulful purpose, right? What was that radical dream that you had? And when you think about that, here are three ways I broke down that dream because it's most common for most of us. It may be nuanced in your particular environment, but it's typically the same three things that we're looking for. Number one, we want to see aligned values, missions, vision, and goals for ourselves, our leadership team, and the people that we serve. So if you're a coach, you want alignment with what you believe is right for children or right for your clients or customers. Excuse me. You want those values to represent their centeredness. You want your mission to be centered with the leadership team and the teachers that you're coaching, right? Not that they may be identical, but they're in alignment. We're all on the same pathway. We all have a similar vision, right? Within my company, and the work I do to help people get to equity, to help people build it, because equity is not going to happen on accident. It's not going to happen just because you have these festivals or you have these events or you have these moments in time. It's going to happen only by design. So you have to think about the design, and that's how our KPIs are going to help us today. It's going to help us to think, are we aligned by our values, our mission, our vision, and our goals? And that's the dream. Dream number two, motivated and resilient team members. You cannot do this work alone. One of my favorite reference books for the work I do in equity is called Street Data. If you have not heard of Street Data, it is an amazing research-based text. And these two women who wrote this text talk a lot about how equity creates these traps and tropes if it is not done correctly. And so it's like my holy grail. It's my Bible to the work that I do. And so you think about one of the problems that comes up with equity work is that a lot of people are, and this is one of the traps, you are the lone equity warrior. You are the one who has picked up equity. You've taken on the charge. You are doing the grunt of the work by yourself. And even though people may say they believe in it, they know that it's necessary, they all the stuff that they give you, you're the one that's actually putting boots to the ground and doing the work. And that trap and trope will leave you and lead you to burnout. It will lead you to feeling as though this work is not sustainable. It will lead you to want to opt out and find another way to do it. And while I advocate for anybody making a choice on what they want to do with their life, if you are in education, if you are in schools, if you are in districts, right? Our kids need people like you to stay in the game. They need people like you who are radically dreaming, who are motivated and resilient, right? It means that you understand the dream, the values, the goals, the mission. It's all aligned and you're doing it within a team. Dream number 3, you want transformation. This is your dream environment, y'all. We got to get back to dreaming. Transformation is happening. Growth is happening. Quality service is happening, right? We don't have teachers who are causing harm or students who are causing harm on a normal basis. You all wouldn't believe I advocate and connect with parents and families sometimes in the communities who may want to come to a meeting with their child. And I just did that earlier. What was that? Actually, Monday. And to hear some of the things, not that the parents are saying that they're doing, and it's just an accusation. To know that these things are happening because the admin has confessed, yes, we know this is happening because another parent said the same thing. Or we see a trend among our teachers of this type of thing happening. To know that this harm is happening consistently should make us want to situate ourselves in a space where transformation, growth, and quality service, the way that we serve the teachers, our staff that we may supervise, the way we serve them is high quality, top tier. And then the way that they serve the customers, the clients, the families, the students, whomever goes in next in line with those people is high quality. That is the dream. But here is the missing piece. There's no clarity, there's no cohesion, and there is very little courage. And this is not all on you as the instruction leader. So hear me. The missing piece is that we got to achieve these 3 C's. There has to be clarity. I think a lot of people believe that because they hold a job title that people automatically know what you do and what value you bring to the space. I was working with a one-on-one client who was an equity literacy coach, and she is new in this field. And being new in this field means that you take the position of someone who is also in this role. And it also means, unfortunately, that people have created a script in their mind. It's called schema. There is a script in their mind about what you do, what value you bring to the table. And a lot of times, if you're in the district and you're coming into schools and you don't already have a relationship established, you're like the big bad person from district. Sad to say, but that's what it is. And so because you are that person that comes in, these people have clarity about what you come to do, what experience you have. So me and this client that worked one-to-one together, I helped her to develop clarity, which led her to be confident. Like we worked through pitches on how she would talk to new people who did not know her, how she would articulate her value, the language she would use around equity that promotes the idea of collaboration and harmony, and not me hoarding power over you, but me in a position to share power with you. Her develop the confidence in that language approach. Why? Because when you are clear and you are confident about who you are and what you do and what your goals are and what you're bringing to the space, now you bring that clarity, which will help lead to next thing, cohesion. And cohesion is that alignment that I talked about earlier. It's that alignment that says that we are gelling together, me and my team, me, my team, and even my leadership staff, we are colliding, not crash, but we are gelling together, working together towards a common goal, right? So one of the things when I'm working with teachers, I have had the benefit of also working with their leadership staff, because I tell leaders, you can't bring me in like I'm the big bad monster and you want me to come in and tell teachers what to do and just fix them. Because what I find out happens is a lot of them are going to get comfortable with me, because one of my top tier core values in my company is relationship building. And I'm real good at that. I'm going to toot my horn. I'm great at relationship building. So people feel connected to me and they begin to tell me the truth. They begin to tell me what is going on. We love all of this that you're giving us. We want to do it. But when admin comes in, they say this, they say that. So there is no cohesion between the culturally responsive work that I'm trying to lead them to that will increase student engagement, because it's literally brain based. Everything I do is based off how the brain processes the information, right? From the reptilian section of the brain to the limbic region to the neocortex to the nervous system in the body. We lay that all out. Because if you're not understanding the humans in front of you and how to connect to them as leaders, and then teachers how to connect to them as not as students, but teachers to students, you're going to have a gap. So you can say I'm teaching, but in reality, a lot of times they're not teaching, they're doing more talking, because you're not responding, you're working responsive, right? And so that cohesion, that gap is there because leadership is different or has different expectations. And a lot of time, now some folks might get a little attitude with what I'm about to say, but I have to keep it real, because this is my experience from when I was a teacher, from when I was an instructional leader. Alyssa, can you call Amaya and tell her I'm on live, please? My daughter called, sorry. From when I was a teacher, when I was an instructional leader, and even now, an outside looking in perspective, what I saw was that a lot of instructional leaders didn't know how to lead for good instruction. Some folks got into their position in leadership and they were not the greatest teachers. They might have been able to form good connections with students. They might have been able to, initiate some programs and roll out some things and make good impact here and there, but they couldn't really coach teachers on how to be better teachers. How do you scaffold and prompt and cue a student to go deeper into their cognitive understanding? How do you develop space where students can engage in social learning theory and they're able to talk about things and ask prompting questions with one another and have aha moments organically? How are you able to create assessments and plan backwards and utilize a universal design for learning that is going to make sure that all students have access, representation, engagement, the three components of UDL, right? If you don't know these things off the bat as an instructional leader, how can you have the courage, which is our third C? And a lack of courage oftentimes indicate a lack of competence, skill set. And this is not a thing to say that someone is calling you out. No, I'm calling you in. Because when you are self-aware of where you are and where you need to grow, you don't take it personal. You don't take it personal to say, you know what? Who she thinks she talking to? I'm a good leader. How dare she say this and that? No, if you know that you don't have a high skill set of leading for equity-based instruction, meaning that all students, right, from diverse cultural backgrounds, from neurodivergent, neurotypical backgrounds, from multilinguistic differences and backgrounds, all of these different things that come up. If you know that you are not strong in that, if you couldn't go to a conference and present on that and feel good about what you have to say and feel good about leading other teachers in that work, you just got to be real about it, because you're not going to have the courage to go in. What I've seen happen, and this is literally something I've seen within the last year, is that more of our administrators who should be instructional leaders as well, but a lot of times they're stuck in administration. Not their fault all the time, because you got all these things in front of your plate, but I'm trying to get us to understand your role is about instructional leadership. Paperwork, emails, and meetings. Listen, if it's not leading you closer to being a sound, highly confident, highly competent instructional leader, there is a gap. And we got to be real, there is a gap. And so with that gap, they will be blamed. There will be people that say, oh, the teacher's just this, the teacher's just that, the students just this, the students just that, the parents. I mean, the blame will go everywhere, but here, you know what? Let me do some research. Let me hire a coach. Let me sign up for a class. Let me buy a course from someone who can give me the information so that I can build my own confidence and competence. That's my formula. I need to trademark it, but that's my formula. Confidence plus competence. And I tell that to teachers because you're going to see your students misbehave. You're going to see them act up a lot of times because they don't have the confidence and or the skill set, the competence. Same thing with teachers. You see teachers be resistant, or same thing with instructional leaders. You're going to see teachers be resistant to new ways of thinking, being, engaging young people, because it's safer to do it the way I've always done it. All these other things are leaving me with a gap because I don't know how. And trust me, I work with enough teachers, thousands, right? And this is just in my 4 years of being an consultant and having my own business, right? I've worked with up to 1,000 teachers where I found, thank you, KLA, hit me in the DM, let's connect. I found that a lot of them just don't know. It's not that they don't want to do, they literally just don't know. So if you don't have clarity, cohesion, and courage, then that's the missing piece. So let's move forward. Here's why key performance indicators are important. These KPIs, we hear a lot about this in spaces like corporate. We hear a lot about this in places like, even with nonprofit organizations, things of that nature. We hear a lot. We hear a lot about KPIs, but they are, number one, very important for when you are in K through 12 settings. Hey, Toya. They are very important for K through 12 settings. Why? Benefit number one. But pause, let me go back. Before I get into the benefits, let me explain what KPIs are, because I don't want to assume everybody understands that. But key performance indicators are specific, measurable metrics, right? These are good. I do this in my business. When people are asking me to help them understand business, right? How did you get to 6 figures? How did you continue to be going on after 4 years when a lot of people would have quit in business by now? How did you get contracts with people? My first contract was not in Arkansas. It was in Massachusetts. And that's because I had KPIs in my marketing. I didn't need 5,000 followers. I didn't look at those numbers. See, we got to think about what specific measurable metrics that are going to help us assess progress. And my progress was not about popularity on these social media streets. That's cool if it converts. But if your popularity on social media, if your popularity among your team members does not convert to actually achieving strategic objectives, your KPIs need to be reshaped. You need to rethink what type of continuum, where do I want a dream to be, right? We talked about dreams. And a lot of us stop dreaming because we become so inundated with, or so overwhelmed with where we are stuck in. But what we have to think about is, what was the dream you had when you opened the business? What was the dream you had when you started the firm? You got a position as an instructional leader, when you became a principal, whatever it is. What was the dream? Because you had to have a dream for impact. If you did not, you need to go back. Because yes, money is good, but money is not a measurable goal for how your soul is going to engage with what you do. It's a problem. A lot of people have misplaced goals and objectives that only center money. Yes, money helps us make decisions. It helps relieve stress, and we need it. So this is in no need, no vein of being a conversation that says that's not important. Be a martyr for your position, take all this, take all that, and don't get paid. No, get your money, get paid. However, that cannot be your strategic objective for how you're going to go in your position and make an impact. If you're in education, we don't need any more people taking up space. We got enough gaps. I talked about a 33 or 30 something percent literacy rate, meaning only a third of our students are reading at or above grade level. That is atrocious, because these babies are going to be the babies that go out into the world and who are going to need to understand how to engage and navigate this world in space. And if they have a gap in literacy, in reading and writing and comprehending, that's going to be a problem. So when we think about some key elements of KPIs, they have to be very specific. And this is what I love. Me and my client that I work with, and even some of my group clients, right? So I either work with people one-on-one in their leadership role or in their business role, primarily instructional leaders, but I'm starting to branch into a little bit of business coaching, just a little bit. My baby, my love is education, right? My love is people like nonprofits who serve other people. If you don't have specificity when it comes to understanding what you are here to do, how your goals are clear and defined, then you don't have effective KPIs. If they're not measurable, and I talk about data differently, right? I'll talk about that in a minute. But if you don't have those goals that are measurable, right, then you are looking at, thank you, Alyssa. then you are looking at not being able to quantify your data. And I look at two types of data. Qualitative, which is anecdotal, is the story. Thank you, Toya. Please share it for me if you haven't already. But thank you for liking it. Measurable, meaning quantifiable data. When we look at qualitative, right? Because when I did my dissertation and my PhD, I did a mixed methods. It was more qualitative with a few numbers in there because I prize the stories. But people like the numbers, and numbers do matter in a sense. But you got to be able to couple the stories behind numbers. And that's holistic data, right? I'm going to shout this book out again. Street data. If you are in education, or if you are in a community-facing company or organization, you need to understand the importance of holistic data. Because not only do I have numbers behind what I'm doing, I also have stories that help me to clearly define if I'm on track or not. Or even say, okay, because we are doing this well, how can we continue and sustain this type of work? It gives that much needed clarity. Then your KPIs have to be relevant. And this is what I talk about with instructional leaders. A lot of us are pressured by the district. We are pressured by the state to believe that we need to push these curriculums. And let me calm down. Because it burns me to hear leadership pushing these scripted curriculum when teachers know not that the scripted curriculum is bad within itself, but teachers are not robots. So if there comes a need that needs to be responded to in the moment, we may need to veer off of this part of the curriculum, because the curriculum that my children in front of me, the curriculum is not sitting here with me in front of these babies. And I got one child who has zero or very low competence in the English language, but you want me to keep doing this and doing that. No, I need to take a step back. I need to do what is relevant, what is responsive to how this baby's brain is operating. This is why I talk about culturally responsive teaching, even though it gets a bad rap because people have given anything they think is DEI related or DEI connected a bad rap. Culturally responsive teaching is about responding to how the brain processes information, and it uses culture as a leverage. That people naturally and authentically engage in making meaning of the world. If you're not tapping into that, you're not relevant, you're not responsive, and you are not as effective as you can be. So that KPI needs to be relevant. Instructional leaders, it needs to be relevant. If you have teachers and you are pushing this curriculum, or y'all are even focusing on this strategy, right, that you want people to engage in. You want everybody to try this out or everybody to do this, but they're having a hard time with classroom management. I have a scope and sequence that I lead instructional leaders through. The first line of defense, in addition to their identity as a teacher and as a person and what they're bringing into the space and their own biases need to be like, that's already in the background. But the first line of defense is classroom environment. If that environment is off the chain, you can't give them any curriculum that's going to make a difference. Nothing is going to change. Nothing is going to shift. Why? Because that has to be the first line of defense. That's where people have to see that I can engage with young people in a way that hooks them into the learning, that lets them see themselves in the curriculum, in the text, in the math, in the science, so they can feel like I am science. I can be a scientist. It is not something for old white men only. It is not something for only other demographics. It can be for me. As a Black girl, I see scientists, I see Black women scientists in the curriculum or in the teaching, right? And so these things are important. Another element is time bound. And this helps us with these effective feedback loops, right? The things that I'm giving, the things that I'm talking about right now, as an instructional leader, when I was in the district, were not given to me. I'm just going to keep it real. They did not give me this kind of information. They did not tell me that I needed to have this and needed to have, they just didn't do it. They just didn't do it. And so because these key performance indicators were not given to me, were not laid out, were not, articulated in a way that I could be productive, I could do my work and feel confident about what I'm doing. So because those things did not happen, I had to figure out all stuff on my own, which is why I try to help other instructional leaders, because I'm like, look, you don't have to waste time. When you got other people that have been through that have learned the lessons, that are using what has worked by evidence and research, tap in. I help a lot of folks in the DM, but I also coach. I also come in small group coaching, one-on-one coaching. And what I found is the people that really want to see a change in their impact, who are tired of being frustrated and confused, and walking around in the dark, bumping your leg and bumping your knee, trying to figure all these out, invest. They invest the time, they invest the resources, because they know that this is important. They know that this has to work. Okay, so I wanted to outline just really briefly, though, that the key performance indicators are. So here's the benefit. You get clarity and you get focused. You're clear on what you're doing, and I kind of talked about that already, so I'll run through these rather quickly. But you get clarity and you get focus around what you're doing, why you're doing it, what the goals are, have you met them, are you making an impact, where do you need to shift, what do you need to sustain, right? Like, what do you need to keep, what do you need to drop, all of that. And then benefit number 2, you are driven, you're supporting what you do for the people on your team, the teachers in your building, the staff members that you work with. It is driven by holistic data. I talked about that already, but if you're just hopping on, holistic data are the words, the stories, the emotional journey. I know we like to talk about emotions a lot, but they drive behavior. The way people think, the way people believe about you and your role, the way people believe about the environment, like just all of that is based on an emotional experience. And in our part of the brain, which is the limbic region of the brain, that is driven by emotion, we know that emotions also in the limbic region is memory. So you got emotions and you got memories, and they impact all of that, right? They are the bread and butter to how we show up and respond. And then lastly, benefit number 3, you have strong teams with high trust and high buy-in. A lot of times people just don't trust you. And it could be 1 or 2 reasons. It does not have to be that you necessarily have done something that warrants that mistrust. Because a lot of times, if you're jumping into a position or you're new to this space, a lot of times it's not that. A lot of times the reason is because you represent a system that has not had a positive impact or place in their professional life. You represent a system. And sometimes to break down that system, you got to work on how do we build trust. So I love the work I am most proud of. My own research as a doc student, my continued research and the building of my own andragogy, which is the adult learning theory, and pedagogy, how to mesh that with how we reach our young people, is understanding the brain. And I love talking about building trust from a neurological perspective, because it's not just a feel good in terms of something we see on the outside. It is a release of a brain chemical called oxytocin. And that bonding hormone is so important because it is also an antidote. It is a fighter. It is a mitigator of stress and pain, which is the hormone called cortisol. So when think about it, if you were to do something risky like jump out of a plane and you were so fearful of doing this, right? I was watching Love is Blind, and one of the ladies there and her husband, before they got married, he was so afraid of heights. But because he was so bonded with his woman, his lady, his fiance, because he was so bonded with her, he was able to take a risk. That's what you want. That's what it does. It bonds you with people. So even when there is a risk, and here is where risk come from: making a change, doing something different that I've not done before, actually deciding to take a leap and teach in a way that may not be common, that's taking a risk. And if you don't have a trust bond connected with your team that you lead, they're going to look at you like you're absolutely crazy. Some may take the risk just for the sake of compliance and doing what you should do. Others will say, I'm not doing it. They may even act like they're going to do it. They may even put on a facade. But when you come around and observe, when you ask for feedback, when you look at the results, you tell, they are not bought in to what you want them to buy into. And so you have to have this trust. You have to develop it. And one of the things I do strategically, hey Doc, one of the things I do strategically is that I work with these instructional leaders. How can you strategize? How can your KPI, or key performance indicator, what does it look like when you have built trust and buy-in? How do we get there? It can't be something you just hope happens because you're being nice to people. It's not something that you just hope happens because you're going to have these meetings and you're going to bring donuts and you're going to have snacks and you're going to smile and you're going to do the. No, there's a strategy to building trust and buy-in with your team. This goes with, I do this work with, I've done a few parent and community engagement workshops, and I have to work with those leaders to tell them the same thing. Same thing applies with teachers and with students. If you're a manager, if you are a supervisor, same thing with your team. And this is why we see a lot of people quitting jobs, because a lot of the leadership doesn't, sometimes they get in the space where they don't even care. They don't even care about creating a space where trust and buy-in is normalized. They just are there to do the job. They just are there to see things happen and to move on and move forward. And so we've got to ensure that we're looking at that benefit, right? These are the 3 benefits that we want to really focus on. And that's what happens when you have KPIs, right? Bless you. I got my first rose. Mike, can you believe it? I got a rose on TikTok. That's so nice. All right. I got a TikTok screen going over here, and I'm new to TikTok for those who are watching. But why KPIs and why now? I know a lot of us, we're going into our holiday break next week, and we are in a space where a lot of us are really tired, exhausted. I saw one of my beautiful colleagues in the work talk about this, Principal Patterson. It's time for a reset. It's never too late to refresh and reset. You still got a whole separate semester. We still got, when we come back from the holiday break, for those who are in schools, anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks before you leave out for the winter break. And so you've got to make a decision. Reason number one, why now? Why KPIs now? It's past time to come out of these toxic cycles, these toxic patterns. You have seen the thing happen over and over and over and over. It's time to come out. It's time to come out of these toxic patterns and these toxic cycles. Reason number two, change is just a few good decisions away from sustainable development and growth. Bless you. Change is just a few good decisions away from sustainable development and growth. It is actually not that far off. You've got to be willing. You've got to be willing to decide that it is now my opportunity. It is now my time to make a sustainable choice, to make a commitment that I know I need to develop my own KPIs. I know I need to develop my key performance indicators, and I can do it now. And I can be transparent about that, right? Because people, I read this comment from TikTok. She says, Dr. Mel, I got kicked off PTA for having these discussions with the principal. And unfortunately, these things happen if your leadership is not in cohesion with wanting to have these things happen, right? Because it's going to call them to a higher level or a higher standard of excellence. And to be real, some people are content with collecting their check, doing things the way they've done, perpetuating an us versus them, which also perpetuates a have and the have-nots, because when there's an us versus them, the us who may be in power will not share the them who doesn't hold the same space or hold the same power. So it continues to create this chasm, this separation between us in our positions and the people that we serve. And a lot of people don't see it as I'm serving, right? A lot of people don't take on their leadership role as servanthood. And you can, and it's reflective in their values. Like when you get down to it, when you have people drill down, a lot of this stuff is identity problems. A lot of this stuff is like, who are you for real? Who are you as a person? How are you okay with seeing the same thing happen over and over and over again? How are you okay with this? Why is this okay for you to see that students are still falling through the gaps? To see a certain group of students continue to be expelled or suspended, put out of the classroom, not achieving academically? How are you okay with that? And it reveals something internal a lot of people don't want to face about themselves. And that's a part of the system. The system is designed. It is designed. While we talk about equity by design, the system is designed to perpetuate and keep the gaps of an us versus them. And if you've been a them and now you're a part of the us group and you now align with their system and their standard, then you got to question, why did you shift and change? Why did you need to belong so bad? Why did you want to be aligned with these people so bad? Because you know what it was like to be a them. But then on the flip side, if you move from the them space and become a part of the us just by position or title or privilege or power, and you don't try to disrupt some of these things, or if you do try to disrupt some of these things, you are going to face resistance. You are going to face backlash. And she says here, I'm seriously thinking about homeschooling. A lot of parents and families are. School choice is a thing that's highly debated. And I won't get into that discussion thoroughly, but I know some people feel a certain kind of way. But to be honest, in my experience in public schools, it's a lot of us and system work that keeps them in their place and perpetuates the same gaps, but we highlight the tokens. We put on our website the little events and things that we have going on to make us feel, to absolve us of our guilt, to absolve us of the fact that even though, yes, a lot of students may be succeeding, some students may be doing well, right? There are still so many that are dropping out, so many that are barely making it, don't graduate, or don't come out literate. Even if they graduate, we have illiterate graduates. And we're making it okay to just slide them along, pass them along. And this is why if you're an instructional leader, excuse me, if you're an instructional leader, you have to have your own KPIs. And you have to do it now. You have to take a stand. Like, you have to be in community with other folks. You have to reaffirm what you're doing while you're doing it. You have to be willing, when you have these KPIs in place, because a lot of us get real passionate. I'm one that gets passionate. When I start talking, my voice has an inflection. It's a very strong passion. I get into it because this is in my soul. Like, this is not something that I just think is cool to talk about. This is something that I've experienced from a student perspective, seeing family members deal with the problems of the us versus them, to a teacher perspective and seeing it from that lens, to a leadership perspective, district seeing it at that lens, and now from an outside perspective, partnering with these people and seeing them do things that goes right against what I have to say. And guess what? I have to have bold conversations, but guess how I make them impactful? Guess how I get these people to listen and they hire me another year? Guess how? My KPIs are very clear. I tie them to student outcomes every time. Every single time I'm bringing up an issue, I'm able to connect it back to how the brain processes information, how this is a benefit or a harm to your teachers and your students, and our goal to serve our young people and for them to be brilliant, for them to know they are geniuses, for them to show up as the intellectual giants in the world we know they are and can be. Isn't that the goal? Is that not the goal? And I have to bring back that because it makes them really think about what is the goal. And they begin to respect the fact that I can show results of my KPI. See, they're not just cute little standards that I have for the way I run my business, which is in education. It's not simply that. These KPIs are going to give you the data that you actually want, because we want to see students improve. We want to see people reading and engaging in critical thinking and being joyful within learning spaces. And I mean, we want to see liberation, right? But a lot of them are. She said a lot of them are concerned with checking a box, because that's how the system indoctrinates its participants, right? The system is like a puppeteer, and it has teachers and leaders as these puppets, which we carry you by the string because we hold something that's dear to you: security, job security, financial security. And if you're one that is not, some people are nervous about that, and I don't blame you. If you got families to take care of, you got bills to pay, as we all do, this is no shade. Everybody has capacity to make a faith leap and make a faith jump like I did when I left a full-time job to go into my own business. But I had faith in what I was doing. I had faith in the God that I served, and I knew that I was going in the right direction. And it was challenging, don't get me wrong, but it worked out. And I had to, right? And the kids are suffering. And that's why I impact in a different way. Because now I can come into a space where the kids have been the ones who have been suffering, where the kids have been the ones who have, bared the brunt of this problem. And I'm able to go in and actually impact teachers in a way where I'm hearing about results. I'm observing results. I'm seeing incremental change happen. And I'm working with leaders to make incremental change. It doesn't all happen as quickly as we will want to. But that's the thing about this work that we do. It's who's going to be able to last. The race is not given to the swift, but the one who endures to the end. And if you're for real about this education work, in whatever capacity you impact it, you have to be willing to stay in it for the long game. You have to be connected to community to have these conversations about, yes, this is crazy that this happened, right? This is not a scapegoat to say, you don't feel the feels. That was dead wrong what they did. Yes, it was. Let's talk about it. And then let's talk about what's the root of that. And let's talk about what can we do to impact that in a different way, in our own capacity, in our own space, whether you're a parent, whether you are a community engagement person, whether you are a teacher, whether you are a leader, consultant, whatever your space is, how can you impact without tapping out? Right? Because if everybody taps out, if everybody leaves, if everybody says enough is enough, and if we don't have another generation that we encourage to come in and change things, where will that leave our kids? Where will that leave our kids? So we got to think about something. We got to think about it in that way. And I always, hey, Dr. Nicole, I always encourage that. She said courageous conversations are a must. And I'm going to also say, can y'all see me on TikTok? It went low. I think I'm still there. Oh, I got to drag this puzzle piece in the TikTok. Okay, here we go. Amaya, step out, baby. Courageous conversations are a must. But I also say courageous conversations have to be coupled with brave actions. Because I'm not going to lie. We talk a lot. We do a lot of talking. And if we're not willing, if we don't find space and place and opportunities or make them, get finding them, if we don't make them, it's going to be the same thing. And everybody doing their thing in their place and space is what brings the global impact we want to see, right? So we talked about the reasons and we talked about all those things. So I'm getting ready to close out and I'm going to just stay on a little Q&A. If you have questions, if you want to make a comment about something that we talked about, feel free to make those. But I will say that this is the work that I love to do. This is the work I love to do. Yes, I do professional development workshops in schools. I work with teachers. I coach. Let me be very clear. I don't do one and done. So don't call me for that. You want me to do a one-time PD? I'd rather not. And I've turned some down. Rather not. And I'm not, actually. Not just rather not. I'm not. Because it's about impact. If we're going to do it, we're going to do it. There's going to be an accountability piece where we're going to observe the very thing we're talking about in these PDs. And we're going to gradually build readiness and willingness for this work, because this is soul work, mind, will, and emotions. It's just not strategy work. Get teacher strategy and say, do this. No, if their soul is jacked up, if their belief system is jacked up, if they are basing every decision on deficit-based thinking and strength-based thinking and teaching, I think I am on Facebook, then it's just a mess. It's just a mess. And nothing won't change. Like she said, it'll be teachers who are just checking boxes, but teaching is an act of the soul. It comes from your mind, will, and emotions. And a lot of people want to act like teaching is corporate work, where you are so isolated and separated from the people you serve, but it is not. Even your leadership, if you're a leader, whether in education or not, is not to be separated. And this is why a lot of people are complaining on social media. They are posting videos on YouTube about inhabitable, toxic work environments. And they're quitting or soft quitting. And they want to say people are lazy. No, folks are not here to sign up to get beat up by their supervisors. People are not signed up to get beat up by their managers. crazy to them and expect them to do something because you sign a check or put their hours in. Like, that's really inhumanity. And I try to get people to get back to think about, why are you acting like this? Who told you that this is what leadership is about? She made the comment, most leaders don't like accountability because you feel like you've either seen leaders act this way, where there is no accountability. They just get to tell people what to do. There is no questioning. There's no collaboration, no empowerment. It's only power hoarding and not power sharing. And so you adopt the same toxic foolishness into the role you have to lead. And then you want people to do certain things. And a lot of people will be resistant because some people are bold and they won't do what you asked them to do just because you talked to them the way you did, just because you said it the way you said it, or you tried to CC somebody on an email like you were tattletale. You tried to call them out in the staff, like all that kind of passive aggressive or aggressive behavior. It's not going to help you be a great leader. And it's not going to develop a culture where people are willing to take on new things. People are willing to try out new ideas because our generations are changing. They are shifting. They are growing. And if you are not ready to be adaptable and what's the word? Malleable. If you're not able to move and shift and shake as necessary, whether you're in education or any other space, you're going to get left behind. Or you're going to not have the results that you really need. And then the state's going to be knocking at your door. Then you're going to have the State Department of Education coming and saying, we're about to shut the school down, or we're about to come in. And I've been in a school a couple of times because I've taught in some very tough environments, okay? And the state has come in. The state has been there every day. And it's a mess. A mess is stress on the leader. It's stress on the teachers. The kids feel the stress. It's just a whole cesspool of mess. Right? And that's a whole different leadership perspective that can be talked about. Right? But it's that type of thing that we have to think about. And so that's why I work with, whether it's a consulting contract and I'm working with a district, or whether it's somebody who has sought me out one-on-one and they're like, hey, I need you to help me develop my leadership, my coaching capacity. People don't want to work with me, or they are giving me a lot of resistance, or we're not all on the same page. Like, whatever the issue is, one of my big goals is to help you gain the clarity, the competence, and the courage to do what you do and do it well. But you can't do it and do it well if you're not clear about what your KPIs are. So I'd love to work with you, help you develop a stronger system. What does support mean in your role? How can you clearly articulate this to the people that you are set up to serve? Right? Because you got to bring more people, more team members into alignment. If you're not in alignment, you're going to continue to have all these other issues. Okay. So congratulations, Dr. Nicole. I hope your session will go. But yeah, if you don't have any more questions, we're going to log on off. Thank you to those. I see you on LinkedIn. I'm sorry if it's been crazy. I've got good internet showing up on my thing, but I think something is wrong with StreamYard. And so it's like really low. And when I looked at this on LinkedIn, I think I may have been frozen. I don't know how it looks on YouTube. So I'm so sorry if it has not looked well, if it has been breaking up. I am going to upload the file from StreamYard itself, which is very clear on my end, so that you can see this again. But thank you all for coming in and tapping in. I am going to hop off, but I will see you all later. If you're interested in working with me, you see my information on the screen. You can also DM me if you're on socials. You can send me a DM. You can send me an email, or you can contact me via phone. And I'd love to talk with you about what this work could look like for you in your leadership role or capacity, and what this work could look like in your own one-to-one or small group. Thank you, Dr. Nicole. Y'all have a good night.